Looks like we're going live. I can't see anything. Does anybody know if we're live or not?
Just 30 seconds, but it says this content of this meeting is being sent to a third party. I've never seen that before.
Well,
Yeah, that's what mine
I,
said too.
I think are we live streaming?
It says we're streaming on YouTube.
Okay. Everybody just bear with us. We're having a little fun here, getting us started. You know, when they update everything,
It's streaming. It's
it's
streaming.
streaming.
Yep,
Hello, everybody.
it is.
It's been 2 weeks, and you can tell 2 weeks, and it certainly is good to see everybody. And so we're just now figuring all the updates out that's come in while the 2 weeks we've been gone. So we're thankful that you're coming and joining us tonight. Those of you listening by Power Faith Radio, we thank you so much for being here. You're actually not here yet. Let me start all over. Those of you that listening by Power Faith Radio, we're so glad to have you with us tonight. Sorry for the little delay, but I had to hit a couple of buttons. And so you're listening. And those of you that are watching via YouTube on Outreach Noah YouTube channel, we thank you so much for being here with us. And while you're there, go ahead and subscribe to that channel. Hit that notification bell that you'll be notified every time a new video goes up. And we appreciate everybody coming in the Zoom room. If you would like to come into the Zoom room with us, go over to a Simple Walk Facebook page. It's a public page. Go over there and you will find all the links how to join us in our meeting. And also you can send us questions through our email. Send the email to outreachnoah@gmail.com. Terry, how you doing?
Doing good. Doing good.
All right. You want to greet everybody in the Zoom room, and I'll get ready for our
Alrighty.
Sadaka time.
All right. Greetings, everyone. And again, thank you for joining us in here in our Outreach Noah class this week. Yes, it has been 2 weeks. And I noticed when I came on tonight too, Zoom had updated and I had to look where they put all the buttons at. And so, yeah, it's been fun this afternoon. We try and get all logged in here together. Okay, we've got, of course, Mr. Scotty back from his away mission to the East Coast and in the engineering room. And so we got Ronald and Bob, Veronica, Sabra, Amuela, Wendell's back with us again tonight, and Chris and Thomas and Will and Hetty's back with us tonight. And so we're all glad everyone could be here in the Zoom room. We always like to say that if you want to join us in the Zoom room, you can go to a Simple Walk Facebook page. It's an open group. Scotty's got the links there posted where you can join right in. You don't have to be on the camera if you don't want to. You can have your camera off and just be here with us. So anytime anyone wants to join us, they're welcome to come on in. And of course, greetings to Power Faith Radio. We've had that 2-week break. Hope y'all have had a good 2 weeks off of relaxing. I spent some time studying and be going in a different direction for the next few weeks. Looking forward to getting into that here in just a little bit and explain more. But I think Scotty's got some Sataka time to talk about tonight, some special things that's kind of going on. Scotty, you about ready?
I am ready. And I saw that Karen and Harold and Karen left the Zoom room, but they're over on YouTube. So,
yeah, I think something about their phones having a charge or something.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we appreciate everybody that has contributed to our Sadaka time. And we're going to talk about one here shortly that we would like you we shared the link on A Simple Walk, and it deals with William Hall's wife. But we're going to get to that here just shortly. So, as always, we start off with our Sadaka time, our time of charity, giving Sadaka for our main teacher, Pesach, and his wife, Shira Sherbo. We always give Sadaka for them to start off with. And so also tonight, Rabbi Moshe Schulman, great classes that he's doing, and he let it slip. I heard the other night that he's still recouping from some procedures that he had going. So we've got him on our Sadaka list tonight. So next is Christina Hall. Christina Hall has went into surgery this morning for a cancer on her back. We haven't heard how it's went yet, but of course, you know, that kind of stuff costs quite a bit of money, especially when you don't have insurance in this day in which we live. So we shared a link over there on A Simple Walk, or you can go to William Hall's. And we had a few people that sent us some funds, and we sent them to them. But you can cut out the middleman. Not that we're saying don't send the funds to us, but you can cut out the middleman. And William Hall shared two possible ways of sending some help and support for him in this time of need. And but we're looking for good things to come out of this. But if you would like to give to that, yeah, go ahead, Ronald.
When you do that, please fill in the box and state that it's for the medical expenses, because otherwise it could possibly just end up in the system as a donation to William's program.
Right.
I realized that when I went in the other day. Yeah. So
thank you, Ronald. Yes, you are so correct on that. I used the first link, which allowed me to send funds through PayPal, and I noticed when I was sending them, it wanted me to put in there what it was for, and I happened to think, well, you know, I should have said that. But thank you, Ronald. I'm glad you brought that up. So as Ronald said, if you follow those links that William has put out, please put in there why you are sending it. I think this morning when I sent some funds that some of you sent us to give to him, I put surgery costs on that. And but now you can send it to us. We'll pass it on, earmark it for that, but to cut out the middleman, go straight to the source and just go to those links and send on over. So we have Christina Hall. I'm getting a Tennessee frog in my throat from coming back from South Carolina. We have Christina Hall in on our Sadaka list tonight. Also, Chrissy Seaton. How's Chrissy doing, Ronald?
I spoke to her last week. We had a good chat. She's feeling good in herself, and she's quite elated. Her doctor has signed her off so she can start driving again, which gives her some freedom she hasn't had for a few months. So she was quite happy, and still just taking it easy day by day and doing what she can. But she's full of life in that.
Great. Also on our list tonight is Harleen Hool, and she's on our Sadaka list. Also, Nadine Akins is on our Sadaka list tonight. Let's remember Nadine Akins. So I want to talk. I'm going to hold my finger right here. One of the things I want you to really think about on Nadine Akins, for some reason, she sleepwalks. And when she sleepwalks, she falls. And falling does not wake her up. And so she's got some pretty deep bruising. And as soon as she gets over one, she finds another one. And of course, the doctor told her last week that they're going to have to check out some of her medications that they have her on. And so be thinking about that. I mean, it's pretty severe bruising to where it even goes into an open wound as it heals. So I just want you to remember her, if you would just write that down, as well as Christina Hall. So our next on our list tonight is William and Tina Lyons. Let me get this in there. William and Tina Lyons is on our Sadaka list. Also, Jeremy Kibbe. Jeremy Kibbe is on our Sadaka list tonight. Jeremy is looking for direction, and I think he's maybe even looking for new employment. So if you'll be thinking about Jeremy Kibbe on that. So is that what you think? Is that what you got to, Ronald, from that?
Yeah. I do a study weekly with Andy overall and Jeremy, and he brought that up a little while back, that he's seeking better employment, getting some training, doing something positive.
Okay, good. Thank you for that confirmation. Also, Larry Beck is on our Sadaka list, and let's remember him and his wife. And then also, somebody always sends in $1 for each one of these next people. Amuela, this is your dollar going in. They send it from you. So this is your blessing going into the stock list box. And then also they send one in for Veronica Port. And also they send one in. If I can get it in there, I can do it. They also send one in for Thomas Schaus. So they constantly think about you three. Now, I don't know if that's good or bad that they've put you two with Thomas, or if they're thinking Thomas is better than he is if they put him with you too. So I don't know. So we'll have to continuously pray for that matter. But we thank them for doing that. They think of y'all, all three of you, and they know all three of you, and so we really appreciate them doing that. Also, let me see where I'm at here. George Self listens on the radio, and he's sent in some tzedakah while we were gone, and we had a little conversation with him, and so we're giving some tzedakah for George Self tonight. He's on our tzedakah list. Also, Juanita Bledsoe. Juanita Bledsoe is on our tzedakah list tonight. And also, Ronald, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well at the moment, Scotty. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Things are good.
Okay. Well, you're on our tzedakah list. So we're putting this in here. And then also, it's good to see Wendell. Wendell, we've missed you. Of course, you was on YouTube for a couple of weeks before we took our vacation, and then it's good to see you back and tell your wife Mary we said hello. Aren't you glad I didn't bring Snow up into this conversation? Okay, so we're giving Thanksgiving tzedakah for you all, and then in our blessed memory tonight, let me get this in here. In our blessed memory tonight is Clifford Hoole. Now, we had for a long time Clifford and Harleen on our tzedakah list, and Clifford Hoole a few weeks back passed and left this walk of life. And I had I'm going to call it a privilege. I had the privilege of being there when he left this walk of life. And an interesting thing, I'm not going to go into it, but that happened during that time. Maybe sometime in future I'll go through that. But Clifford Hoole is on our blessed memory tzedakah list tonight. Would you just take a moment and help us pray tonight? Hear our voice, Adonai, our God, Father of mercy. Have compassion on us and accept our prayers with compassion and favor. For we know that you are a God who hears prayers and supplications. You are our King. Please do not send us away empty-handed. Favor us and answer us and listen to our prayers. Amen. All right, Terry, are you about ready to get started tonight?
I guess.
And I'm going to am I putting you on speaker view tonight, Terry, or this?
It doesn't matter. You don't have to, because
okay.
I think I shared with you the other night a little bit what we were kind
of. Yes. So, okay, take off.
Again, greetings everyone, and welcome to our Outreach Noah class. I'm going to be taking a break from our book study for a while. I've been doing some studies in an area that's very important. It's rubber meet the road stuff, everyday stuff that's for us. I want to take time and going through these. Well, if you have a question, you've got a comment or something like that, Scotty's going to be ready. We can go ahead and we can discuss this as we go, instead of like doing a lesson and having questions and things at the end. Let's do this through it. So, Scotty, if somebody sends you something, we need to talk about it at the time. Let's cover this as we go, chew on this. I'm going to be starting out tonight. It's called A Society Gone Wrong. We're going to be looking at two passages in Genesis chapter 6. So if you've got your notebook, pens and papers, however you want to take notes, I really recommend as we go through this, you're going to have some interesting things here you probably want to jot down, remember, to go back and look at again and study and ponder upon, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working from the generation of the flood up to what it all means for us today. In Genesis chapter 6, verse 11 and 12, I'm just going to read it, and then we're going to discuss it. In Genesis 6:11, now the earth had become corrupt before God, and the earth had become filled with robbery. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. And we've talked about in the past, about, it says that the earth, they had corrupted their way. And we've discussed that a little bit in the past. And that's really where we're going to be spending some time over, hopefully the next couple of weeks or so, discussing that. But to lead up to that, I wanted to go through verse 11 and 12. There are many statements, or multiple statements here, that the Creator made in telling Moses when he wrote all this down, that I want us to break it down and look and see what is actually said, so we can begin to see how this pertains to us today in our everyday lives. Within the two verses, the Torah gives us a lot of information on the state of mankind at the time, the generation of the flood. The information given also contains messages, like I said, for us in our day and time. There are 26 generations between Adam and the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. And so during this time period from Adam on, it's written different than what God gave Israel at Mount Sinai. A lot of people want to know, well, where does it say this? Where does it say that? Where's the 1, 2, 3s? That's what he did with Israel in the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, but that's not how he dealt with man for 26 generations. As we've studied in the past with Genesis chapter 2, verse 16, the sages all teach us that when God gave the commandment of the 2 trees, that was the beginning of his moral training. And we'll be getting back into that again, because we're going to be going through several things. We'll be going through several things in Genesis over the next few weeks. Discussions on Noah, discussions on Job, and just these different areas that kind of all blend in to what human life was supposed to be like, and what it is supposed to be. What it was and what it is supposed to be is what we're going to be looking at. In Genesis chapter 6, verse 11, it says, and the earth was corrupt before God. Where it says here, now I'm going to be explaining it in the English, and I'm going to tell you what the Hebrew says. I won't be saying all the Hebrew words, but the word earth here in this passage, that the earth was corrupt before God, the Hebrew word haaretz for the word earth, that's translated earth, it is not referring to the planet, a cosmic body like Earth, Moon, Sun, Saturn. It's not talking about it as a planet. The Torah sages of Israel teaches us that the Torah's concern here with the use of this word, that the earth became corrupt, concerns the surface of the planet, because it is the stage of man's activity. It is the stage of man's activity. And it says it was corrupt. It said it was corrupt before God. The Torah sages of Israel explains here that this word corruption, and it even has the root word even goes even deeper, which we'll mention here a little bit later. But the word corrupt here, when it is used in the Hebrew scriptures, refers to the corruption of immorality and idolatry. So we see here that the earth was corrupt. It was corrupted by immorality and idolatry. The word before here, before God, in the Hebrew, is lifnei, which is the root word that is panei, which means face. This word means face, and it is used in this reference here, lifnei, representing the presence of, that it was corrupt in the presence of God's face. Again, which that's anthropomorphic, as we've discussed in the past. Exodus 23 says, "You shall not have the gods of others in my presence." Again, panei, which in that passage, actually, when you read it in the Hebrew, so we're not supposed to put a foreign god, a foreign entity, a foreign deity as a representation of God's face. In his presence, we shouldn't say this is what God is, because we have no form. And when we do that, when we make a form of anything, of creation, and we represent it as God, it violates this issue of putting an image on God's face. And so we see here that the generation of the flood had corrupted the earth, the face of the earth, the stage of man's activity, with immorality and idolatry. Okay, Scott, anything you want to discuss about the immorality and idolatry? So I just want to take little bites at this.
No, we're good. But there's a couple of questions. I know you're fixing to go there, so we're going to let you go right on in. I don't want to jump ahead of where you're going, because somebody's already. Just go ahead where you're going, and
What's
I'll
the
jump
question?
in. No, they're still formulating.
Okay.
Okay.
At any time, just Scott, you can just cut in, because I want us to really discuss these things, because some of this, I know quite a few have not really studied at this level the Torah, and it can kind of be eye opening and also, shocking sometimes of what we're learning and what it says here. In the immorality and idolatry, the immorality aspects comes when we have the written Torah, which it wasn't written at this time, but when the Creator told Adam and Eve, and Adam said that a man shall leave his wife, and they, shall cleave together and become one flesh. They become one flesh through their production of their children. And so we get the one law of the Sheva Mitzvahs, the 7 commandments of the God of Israel. We get that we have forbidden sexual relations, and it comes from that statement that Adam made that eventually got written down in the Torah, that was passed down when he taught his children the proper way to propagate the earth. Well, so that generation of the flood began to do all the things that we actually are seeing today and worse, and the earth became full of immorality. And then idolatry came into the earth. I believe it was the grandson of Adam. It was during the times of Enosh, and we've covered this, and I won't go through this whole thing here. If someone wants to, we can cover it as part of this in a little more detail. But during the times of Enosh, mankind made a great mistake, and the wise men of that generation gave thoughtless counsel, and Enosh himself was one of those who erred. Their mistake was that they said that God created the stars and the spears to control the world, and he placed them there high and treated them with honor, making them servants who minister before him. And accordingly, the Ramban goes on and he says, accordingly, it was perceived this would be the will of God. Blessed be he, that they glorify and honor those who he glorified and honored, just as a king desires his servants who stand before him to be honored. Indeed, doing so is an expression of honor to the king. And that's when idolatry entered the earth for the first time. And there's a lot more detail on that, and we can cover that again during this time we cover these if someone wants. We'll we'll go through that whole thing with the generation of Enosh that brought idolatry upon the earth.
Okay, so you ready for the first little dive into this?
Okay, go ahead.
Is idolatry different forms of what we call today religion?
I'm going to say probably yes and no.
Can you talk about that just for a minute?
Do what?
Yeah, talk about that just for a minute. So what exactly is idolatry? How does it work?
Idolatry in itself is an action. There are, you know what? I should have had my, hold on, I got it right here. I had my book down on Enosh. Hold on a second. There are, let me find it here. I've generally got 3 of these. Okay. There's 4 actual aspects that are considered acts of idolatry that brings us as being guilty for idolatry itself. And they're the 4 actions that are prohibited regardless of the type of idolatry. Bowing before an idol, slaughtering to an idol, burning an offering before an idol, and offering libations to an idol. Those are 4 specific actions that if we do any of those, bowing represented praying, praising, worshiping, anything that's an image or symbolic to of God that is not of him, whether it be physical, spiritual, whether it be like the angels, or whether it be a human being, whether it be a stone or wood, bowing, praying to, offering praise to it. That's an act of idolatry. Slaughtering. Some cultures, they'll slaughter animals or even humans before an idol. That is an act of idolatry. Burning an offering, again, it kind of goes in with the slaughtering, and offering libations, pouring water, pouring wine, offering any of those things before an idol. All of those they're 4 specific acts that is considered idolatry. A religion can be idolatrous, but you're not worshiping the religion, but that's the avenue in which to commit idolatry. I guess you probably be the best way to say that. But the religion itself, like, we can pick one like Hinduism. We all know that's, kind of a pagan religion. And so it's the gods of that religion that is worshipped in those 4, either in one or more of those 4 areas. But any religion where you do one of those 4 religion areas is considered idolatrous.
So I'm just kind of jumping in this communication that's going on here. So it seems very hard to imagine in that day and time how people could get their mind off of the creator, and I'm formulating this from this, off the creator, and begin to give his glory to something else. Can you cover how that happens again? How that works?
It didn't happen all at one time. It's one of those things that it began with good intentions. It began with, a good idea that over time turned bad. Like I said, we can cover the whole issue with Enosh. There is power in the constellations, in the planets, and in the stars. There is power that they do wield upon the earth that the Creator gave.
Well, let's pick one. Can I?
Just like even the moon and the sun, exactly. Yeah. The 2 that are the closest to us has power on the earth. They affect climate. They affect
growth of plants,
and things like that. And so the nature revolves around the sun and the moon and its activities at different stage tides, the four seasons that does, and most of the earth, not all the earth has all four seasons, but just, the all four seasons, all these are parts of the powers of, the sun and the moon, and also, well, the earth itself and how it relates with the other two. And they, back in that day, as the sages teaches us, the Torah sages teaches us, they seen that they were like servants of the Most High, and they are. All his creation is a servant to him. And that's part of what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be a servant. That's one thing about learning. What we're going to be learning is the proper area of where those of us of the nations, where our service to Hashem lies. And so we've seen here the very first thing that happened was with immorality and with idolatry. And so they began to give honor. And then time rose up and kind of kept going. Priests developed. Temples developed. Priests having, quote, visions and voices telling the people how to worship these things. Then they began to carve images that represented these spheres, whether it be the moon, the stars, or the planets or the constellations. And then as time goes on, and I'm just paraphrasing several pages of history right here, it even says that the time had gone on that the women and the children, and it's the terminology that is used for basically the society, had forgotten the name of God, forgotten who it was. And I mean, who he was. And they only did what they knew because it had gone on for generation after generation, and things had been forgotten. And so they were doing all that they knew, which goes on today, Now, which a lot of us are born into things, and that's all we've known for generations.
Could this also fall under a category of misguided teaching from generation to generation, or not enough teaching, not the correct teaching, not the correct information being transferred from generation to generation?
Well, like I said, it started out giving, we should give honor to these servants of God, like a king's, entourage deserves honor. And that's where it and we can see how, we see how that goes on even in our society when, people that hold, high places of authority, even though we may not care for the person in that position, but that office deserves honor and respect, regardless of the person. And we see that in the military. The general walks in, the general and his group comes in, they're all given honor. And that's kind of a natural human tendency to honor, those that we would consider above us. The problem with Enosh and them is that as time went on, religion developed where there was no religion. God, the Creator, did not give man a religion to follow. He gave him moral directives. It wasn't until misplaced honor, misplaced worship gave birth to the first religions that come through Enosh and the worship of the stars. Ready to go to the next one?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Number 2, it says, and the earth became full of robbery. Now, this one's interesting. A lot of translations will say violence or robbery, which Hamas here, it's very interesting, the word Hamas here. I actually learned, I've been studying it for years now, and I learned a few things that I hadn't seen before as I was getting into these studies over the past 2 weeks. It says most English translate the translations of this verse, the Hebrew word Hamas, is robbery. Hamas is a different form of robbery, but it is not robbery in its basic definition. what I want us to look at is theft and robbery in its basic definitions, because we have the prohibition of theft, which we can see from, again, Genesis 2, verse 16, where God set boundaries. This is yours, this is mine. His got taken when it wasn't supposed to, because actually the first act before they ate of the forbidden fruit was they took something that didn't belong to them. And so therefore theft has been a major issue for humanity since that day. But theft in the word, the Hebrew word for theft is Geneva. This is when someone takes another person's possessions, such as money or belongings, secretly without the owner's awareness. So if you're writing things down, you can put theft, and out beside it says, this is the taking or the removal of another person's possessions, such as money or belongings, secretly without the owner's awareness. Now, robbery is gazella. And you don't have to try to write the Hebrew words down. But robbery is when someone takes money or belongings of another person by open force, like armed robbery. But there's other forms of that we're going to get into, because it moves to another level when we get to Hamas. The robbery is when someone takes or removes someone else's money or belongings by open force. They forcibly take it. It might, home invasion, breaking into a store and robbing, a cash register while they're open. It's still theft. It's just a higher level of theft. Now, what Hamas is I found interesting, because it's translated as violent robbery. But robbery is violence. So why is Hamas different? Why did the Creator use this word when it says, and all the earth became full of Hamas, of robbery, instead of the word gazella? And when the Creator told these things to Moses, he specifically chose the words that he wanted to be used there, so we would understand. That's why in English we don't really understand what was going on during the generation of the flood. In the Talmud, in Bava Kama 62a, explains that a Hamasan, a person who commits Hamas, is not quite a robber. Rather, he is a cohesive buyer. He is a cohesive buyer who takes an object from his victim but gives him money. Now, it took me a little bit to figure this one out when I read this. A Hamasan, someone who commits Hamas, is not quite a robber, but he is a cohesive buyer who takes an object from a victim but gives him money. While still considered a wrongdoer, the Hamasan is not technically a robber or a thief. This is by Rabbi Reuben Chaim Klein. The Ramban, in his commentary, says this passage translates Hamas, he translates it as injustice, because it is related to oppression and wrongdoing. The Hamas is related to oppression and wrongdoing. Hamas oppresses others through the force of intimidation. An example can be when someone forces another into selling something that they do not want to sell. Thus, the theft by force, but giving money in return. This is in the injustice, the intimidation, forcing people into doing something that they don't want, even though they're giving them money. It's a forced selling of something they don't want. And I've seen older movies, historical movies, when back during some land grabs out west, that people, settlers had settled land, and then these rich people would come in and they would force them to sell them their land by giving them an astronomical amount of money. And you think, well, what's wrong with that? That, believe it or not, it is kind of a form of robbery, but money is exchanged. It's an injustice. It's an intimidation. It's an oppression and a wrongdoing. And so this was one of the things this is actually, as the Ramban teaches us, this was the key element that the Creator said brought the flood, because with this form of robbery doesn't require a prophet to come and warn, that it was automatically known within human nature that it was wrong and oppressive, and that they could have stopped it themselves, but they didn't.
So somebody just asked a brilliant question. Did idolatry cause people to fall into a position of robbery?
Well, what's interesting is at first, it doesn't say that the flood was brought on by the idolatry and the immorality, but by the Hamas. And the sages teaches that the idolatry and the immorality is personal. It's what you do at home. It's what you do with yourself, whereas Hamas is public.
So you're talking about going from your living room to the streets.
Yes, they took it to the street. So once they started this downward spiral with immorality and idolatry, then it led to the greater. It just kept, as the sages teach us, this one sin begets another sin. One good deed begets another good deed. So which one you want to choose? The generation of the flood chose the wrong side of the track, and it just continued to grow. But yes, the idolatry and the immorality led to the robbery. And if you, I guess, want to be, think about it, the idolatry itself is a form of robbery, because you're robbing the Creator. You're replacing him. Idolatry is replacement theology. Immorality is stealing from yourself. You're going after your own desires, your own needs, or not needs, but just your own desires, and you're going to get what you want to have, what makes you feel good. And especially like with today's, immorality, a lot of the stuff that's going on is everybody is seeking to fulfill their own happiness through their own desire, and finding other people to join them in with that. So there's nothing mutual between anyone other than they're getting their fix. And then it's forced even over, because I won't get into a little bit more corruption a little bit later, what it does as well, and what idolatry and immorality does, because we're going to see that in these next few verses. Anything else, Scotty? Where did you go? He disappeared. There he is.
I just sneezed and I wanted to get off on camera before I did it. No, that's good. Keep on going.
Okay, in Genesis 6:12, the first part, and God saw the earth. The part here where it says, and God saw, he took note because it uses the word eyes there. He took note of their actions. Again, the earth being the stage of man's action. He took note of their action. The behavior of the people had deteriorated. They were corrupt, immoral, and idolatrous. Guilty of immorality and idolatry, they sinned covertly before God. Later, the earth became full of injustice. So the first part of this failure that was setting up the failure of the generation of the flood was the covert corruptness of immorality and idolatry. This shows us a progression of sin. It begins in the private, when people still have a sense of right and wrong. But when the sins become habit, they slowly lose their shame. The immoral behavior becomes accepted. What are we seeing today? The moral behavior becomes accepted and even a required norm within society. Remember, we're talking about the generation of the flood, 26 generations before the giving of the Torah 3,400 years ago. Sounds a lot like today. There's a movie out, and we've been talking not necessarily about this movie, but there's a law that we've been talking about, some of us guys at work. There's a movie out on Netflix called Rebel Ridge. There is a law now. I've got it written down. I'm wanting to research this for the sake of even bringing this into our teachings here. Where did I write it? Oh, right here. There's a law that's actually on our books that's called civil asset forfeiture. Civil asset forfeiture. When the police or the TSA agents or whoever, like they pull you over for a broken taillight, they're going to ask certain questions. Some of the questions were, do you have any drugs or a large amount of money on your person? And the movie Rebel Ridge shows, I believe it's actually somewhat dramatized after an actual event that happened to a Marine. And there's this Marine, he was going to bail out a cousin, and he had sold his car and his share of his business. He had documents showing where this money came from. Well, under civil asset forfeiture, they have created a law to where they can take that money, even if you have proof of it, where it came from, and they say they consider it guilty, that this money could have been used in a crime, and therefore it's guilty. And of course, my very first thing, I'm throwing I can't say the word. Objects cannot become guilty. They're just an object. And so we have here in our land that our government and our government's forces, our police forces, can seize your money and claim that it is guilty. And it's up to you to prove it that it's not. And one of the things they do is, like with the TSA that this gentleman was bringing out, let's say you're going on vacation, you got $2,000 cash on you and you're going to fly. They will report the authorities that you have that cash, and they can seize it. And they'll take that because they know that it's not worth fighting for, because a lawyer would, in a couple of hours, they've done eating up that much money in fees. But this is an actual law in our books. Our country has begun to make legal violations of God's law. We are headed down the same path that the generation before the flood, with the immorality and the cohesive robbery. So I haven't researched all this one out. I wrote it down because it's one of the things I want to research and bring in and have a discussion when we discuss the prohibition of theft. But I brought that up because this is becoming a required norm within our society. And again, here the earth. The word earth is in reference to the surface, the stage of man's activity. We won't talk about anything there before we go to the next part of that passage. And it says, and behold, it had become corrupted. Here we have it again. What's interesting, the sages teaches us that anytime the Creator uses the same words or word in multiple times in a close reference, there's a picture that he's wanting us to see. And I hope we're beginning to see this picture. And behold, it had become corrupted. Talking about the whole earth. The total immersion of immorality and idolatry, the entire society had degenerated. Force and lewdness prevailed. Serfano, a great Torah scholar who lived in the 14 and 1500s, explains that this phrase, behold, it was on, he says, he says that this phrase right here, and behold, it had become corrupted. He says, and behold, it was on the path of destruction, even without divine punishment. For morality corrupts the youth, and violence corrupts social order. Think about that. Immorality corrupts the youth. What's going on today? This is all the generation of the flood. Scotty?
No, somebody just asked, is this what caused the flood, or was the flood punishment for that?
We'll look into that.
Okay.
We'll look into that. For all, I'm bringing it down to the last part here. It says, for all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. This is an important statement. It had corrupted its way. This is what we're going to be looking into over the next few weeks. Because the question I want to ask, it says, for all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. This verse is telling us that there was a way of life that the Creator had given man to live, and man corrupted it. Did you think about that? There was a way that the Creator designed life, but man had corrupted that way. My question is, what was that way? And that's what we're going to be getting into over the next few weeks. Because in Genesis, he mentions two ways that are very important for man, all mankind. This one right here, in Genesis chapter 6:12. The other one's in Genesis 18. And that's the way of God. So I want you to think about this. It says, all flesh. Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, the Ramban, breaks this passage down and shows that this is referring to the humans because animals cannot be guilty of immorality. Animals can't be guilty of idolatry. And animals cannot be guilty of injustice. That is what is brought out with these two voices these verses when it talks about all flesh. This is talking about the human beings that was on the face of the earth. Because the animal and the plant life, though it was affected by the debauchery of man, it can't be guilty of idolatry, immorality, and injustice and robbery. It's way upon the earth. The Hebrew of this is Darko al Haaretz, his way in the world, the way of the land, Derek Eretz. It is the way of the land. Derek Eretz is the way a healthy, decent human being in society should behave. Human society has a natural path to follow, a moral course that it must take. And we're going to be getting into Derek Eretz over the next few weeks, because this is the natural way of humanity. So we have here in Genesis chapter 6, we have that's before the Torah, the giving of the Torah to Israel, which he didn't give to the nations. We still follow Derek Eretz, and so does Israel. They have to follow Derek Eretz, and we're going to be getting into all of this over the next few weeks. It is the natural way. It is the way of the land. In Genesis 18, we see here that Abraham taught his household and his children what's called Derek Hashem, the way of God. So we have in Genesis, the very beginning of man's story, two sides of the same coin. You have the way of the land in which you must live, which is considered uprightness. Then you have the way of God that is righteousness. And we learn these from our two patriarchs, which we'll be getting into over the next few weeks. Of Noah, we'll learn of the seven commands that God gave mankind to live by, the righteous side, which Abraham taught his children of tzedakah and mishpat, righteousness and justice. And we know that Job was a Tom Yasher, that he was an upright man. And those two men are considered the patriarchs of the nations. And so we have the two sides of a coin of what we're supposed to be as human beings. We're supposed to be righteous through the observance of our commandments, and we're supposed to live the way of the land, the way of the world, which we're going to get into. There's 6 aspects, 6 parts that the rabbis have and the Torah sages have fleshed out over the centuries that is brought up of what represents what's called Derek Eretz. That's part of every one of us, what we live, and most of us live a lot of it. We just didn't know that there's this natural path, that this is a healthy, decent human being, that a society should behave. Human society has a natural path. That natural path is not the Creator didn't throw religion at us. He gave us a way of life. A path to live, a path to walk. We don't learn here that the generation of the flood was irreligious, or they were a bad fill in the blank. Because I get tired of it. I'll be honest with you, I just get tired of hearing it all the time, being down here in the South, that a person is a good this or a bad that. And I'm like, quit using that. I'm not a religion. I'm a human being. I corrupt the way of God, or I corrupt the way of the land. And it's both of those things that's got to be corrected, because we're going to even see that the generation of the Second Temple was righteous but crooked. We're going to look at that in probably this next week. And that's why this is so important, because this is getting back to being who humanity was before they corrupted the way. So my question is what was that way? And that's what we're going to look into, what we're going to discuss, what we're going to chew on over the next couple of weeks, is what was the way that the generation of the flood messed up. And that question that was asked about bringing on the flood, there's an alternative teaching which is not known a lot, especially among us in the nations, that when I was studying with my rabbi in New York and others in Israel, there's another interpretation. For all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. That when they had corrupted that way upon the earth, man, because of the word corrupt, its root word means destruction without divine punishment. That word corrupt there has a root meaning of destruction without divine punishment, meaning that the corruption will destroy itself. And there are Torah sages that teaches this here in Genesis chapter 6:12, that the Creator said that all flesh had corrupted his way, and it says upon the earth. In the end, and here in verse 13 says, "In the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth was filled with robbery," or Hamas. The end of all flesh, because that word corrupt means that it has the rootness of destruction without divine punishment, means that one of the ways the rabbis and the Torah teachers of Israel and the sages, that the end of all flesh has come before me because it's going to self-destruct. Its corruption and its robbery is going, if I don't step in, man's going to cease to be because of himself. He brought the flood to save humanity. He chose the righteous man Noah that we're told about here in Genesis chapter 6, that he was righteous and he was morally pure. And even more than that, about finding favor in God's eyes. We're going to get into that passage and how that even strengthens why God chose Noah to be the second Adam, to start man over with. But there is a teaching that the Torah sages teach, that the end of all flesh that's come before me is because man was about to self-destruct. If I don't stop them, they're going to cease to be. And that was why he brought the flood, was to stop this. He had to stop this corruption, had to stop this idolatry, had to stop this Hamas before man self-imploded. And he looked and he found Noah, who was a very righteous man, and he chose him and his family. And there's a big lessons right there we'll get into later. He chose Noah and his family, his wife and his sons and their wives, to start humanity over again. If he had not, man would have ceased to have been on his own. He would have killed himself off. If the Creator did not interrupt with the flood, we would have ceased to be. And that was the generation of the flood. Go ahead, Scotty.
I think that's one thing that people need to get a handle on while moving through this teaching is the Creator did not do this to destroy man, but to save man, because
he did the flood was to save man, not to destroy him.
Man left to his own demise would have destroyed himself. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, because the word corruption there, its root word, shin het tav, means to be destroyed without divine punishment.
Okay.
The word corrupt, that's what that means. And it's in its very root meaning. So that gives us even more insight of what was going on. These words were specifically chosen by the Creator had Moses to write these things down so that we would have the opportunity to look back into the original language and learn from it. And that's the beauty of what we're going through, those of us who are turning to the God of Israel, and he's showing us these things. Our goal is to return to that path that was before it was corrupted, because that was the way of the land, the way that the Creator desired man to live. As long as man was living by the way before it got corrupted, he didn't give man anything. He didn't give him anything in the realm of religious doctrines and rituals and symbolisms, because there was no need. Man was living the way he wanted it to be, his desire. But 26 generations later, through Abraham, he rose up a nation of priests. And their job, because now things were written down, we don't, when we say we observe the 7 commandments of the God of Israel, it's not because they were written down like what was given to Israel. Israel was given the knowledge of all of these things that they're teaching us today, as it says that we would, in Zechariah 8:23, that we would turn to the Yehuda and say, take us with you because we know God's with you. Jeremiah 16 tells us that the nations are going to turn to God and say that we've inherited nothing but lies from our fathers. And so we're seeing this turning of people from all over the world to the God of Israel. And where's he taking the nations? Back to the path that was upright and righteous before the flood. Think about that. Because if man had continued on the correct path, there would have been no flood. The idolatries of the earth wouldn't even probably exist today. So he's taken us back to that path that man was walking before he corrupted it. Because man corrupted it to such an extent, he had to stop man from killing himself. The end of all flesh has come before me. I see this. If this keeps going, it's not going to be good. But when God created everything in the creation week, when he ended there at the end of the week, he said everything that he created was good. So therefore, so that the good can continue, he had to eradicate the bad. And in this generation, when we see what the prophets have been saying, we're returning. We're individuals. We're not a group. We're not a religion. That's why I say we're not a religion. We're individuals returning to the Creator, and he's leading us individually back to the path that was before it became corrupted. That's why we don't have to imitate religions of any format. Those of us as nations, we don't have to imitate anything. Don't have to be a part of it, because it's not who we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be righteous and upright. And if you look at our 7 laws, it's our actions and how we treat God, the Creator, and how we treat man. Again, goes back to what we were saying, that the earth was the stage of man's actions. And the other side of that coin is the uprightness. And we're going to look at 6 categories of uprightness that we're to walk. And it's going to be really interesting. Go ahead, Scotty. You're muted.
My wife must have hit that button. No, so a great class, Terry. Great class. A lot of people are enjoying this, and they can't wait to go on further into what this reveals for them. So, great class.
You gave me 2 weeks to sit and study, Scotty.
Yeah. So that's all right. Hey, so are you through with that? I got one thing.
No. I'm
okay. It came to my attention, and I overlooked a message from Joanna Flynn Wakeoff. She sent it Monday about a young man that she wanted to add to the Tzedakah list. And his name is Hudson Grisham. And I'm giving Tzedakah right now for him.
Okay.
And we are going to put together a little care package for him. He is 15 months old.
Oh,
And he's been in and out of the hospital many times, and probably more times in the hospital than out of the hospital. So what is that, a year and 3 months? But his growth has been kindly delayed. So he's more of a 9 month old. So we're going to put together a little care package for him. And if anybody would like to send anything to help, that's part of what we do too. So if anybody would like to send anything, go ahead. What was you going to say, Terry?
well, that's that. If you go and look at our Who Are We on our YouTube channel, we're a teaching and benevolence ministry, and we do a lot of help. Like with William's wife out in Texas, their situation caught them, off guard. And we're talking about multiple thousands of dollars that had to be paid out today just to have the surgery.
A lot of places won't, as William said, and it's true around here too, they won't do anything of that magnitude without a substantial amount put forth up front.
I mean, it wasn't a whole lot for me when they discovered that tooth broke because of an old root canal, because the system they used back then is now causing a lot of people's root canals, their teeth are breaking. And that's what I had to go through. And I had to have that bill completely paid up. My share, they figured out my insurance, but I had to have that bill paid up before they did the surgery.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd say we're talking about cancer surgery here for Bill's wife. And what that entails was
Christina Hall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Christina.
So while at the same time we're doing that, we're going to put together Hudson Grisham, a little care package, a couple little toys, and he lives in Alaska, I believe she said.
Alaska, wow, cool.
Alaska. So we're going to put together. If you would like to send that, you can just message me, and I'll let you know how you can send that to us, and just earmark it Hudson Grisham, and we'll or put care package, and we'll put together a little something and send to him just to
keep him cheered up.
Yes. So, all right.
Hey guys, I wanted to say something regarding William's situation.
Yes.
I know up here in New York, we got something that's called Care Credit, and I found out that it's nationwide, where for a specific term, it can be used for just medical expenses for like 18 months or for 24 months. It's 0%.
Wow.
So you may want to look into that, because I got that when I had to have my daughter's wisdom teeth removed, because everything needed to be paid at the time of service.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know if he's looked into that or not, but I'm sure that would help out substantially.
You call
if
that
he wants to,
Care
it's called Care Credit.
Okay.
I mean, that would reduce interest payments, and you can turn around and do it right online. That's what I did. And you get a credit card within 3 to 7 business days.
Okay.
It'll get mailed to you. So it's better than 18% or 21% or 15% or 30%. So
Okay. Thank you so much, Christopher.
Mhm.
All right. Well, Terry, we've been at this an hour and almost 15 minutes. So am I coming to a close?
Yeah.
All right. Again, we appreciate everybody who joined us tonight. We thank you for your comments, your
if you've got questions.
Yeah, if you got questions, send them to us. You can send it to our email. Just send it to outreachnoah@gmail.com, or you can message Terry or myself, and we'll put the questions together and maybe jump on that the first before you start next week.
That's fine. We're going to take as long as it takes on this, because it's so important. Because it paints the picture, because a lot of people in over the last, Scotty, 8 years or so, you and I have been doing this together through Pesach, our teacher, and then him sending us out. A lot of people have questions. Well, what are you? Well, this answers it. this is an ethical monotheistic lifestyle. It's the original faith that goes back to before the flood. It's the original faith, and it's the faith that mankind will follow in the future. It'll be the well, if you want to call it a faith, but it'll be the way, it'll be the path of mankind.
Yeah.
And we're returning back to that. And so it's a beautiful thing. And I got into this over the last couple of weeks, and I've had this for a while. And I got back into it over the last couple of weeks, and I'm like, I needed to bring this out in a way that we haven't done, in the last 8 years, because it helps answer a lot of questions.
Yep. Yep. All right. Listen, you can find out more information about us by going to our Facebook page, A Simple Walk. That's what this is, A Simple Walk. And join that page while you're over there. And over there will be all the links on how you can go to our YouTube page or any of those measures, Power Faith Radio, or come into the Zoom room. And remember, while you're at A Simple Walk, go ahead and join that group. And while you are at Outreach Noah YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe to that channel, hit that notification bell that you'll be notified every time a new video goes up. Again, I'm going to say send us an email to outreachnoah@gmail.com. And we thank you all so much for your participation in every way. So
y'all next week. God
willing.
willing.
Next week. See you later. Bye-bye.